The enemy ship swept onwards, coming within range of the lances, but Dorn gave no order for the laser turrets to lock on and fire. About a minute later, a shout from the surveyor crews warned that the phalanx was being targeted by multiple weapon locks. "Reactors to 110%, engines full ahead!" barked the Primarch, turning away from the strategium and heading towards the gate at the back of the dais. "All repair teams to concentrate on void shields. Power up the Teleportaria Prime, Master of the Huscarls. Assemble a strike force of 50 legionaries. Provost Lieutenant Withdrawal, you have strategium command." "You mean to board the enemy, my lord," said Gregorius, striding after his Primarch as another chorus of affirmatives filled the chamber. "I want a good close look, as I suspect they do," said the Primarch, his fingers curling into fists inside his massive gauntlets. "The loss of an entire task force is deserving of my personal attention." He continued to issue clipped commands to the weapons crews, navigational teams, and teleportaria staff as they made their way down the decks towards the main teleportation hall. Gregorius issued the muster command to 5 squads of the Huscarls, ordering them to attend the Primarch in the Teleportaria Prime. The Vox broke with the news that the enemy had opened fire with laser weapons, the first beams absorbed by the layers of void shields protecting the phalanx. "No return fire!" replied Dorn. "Not until my command. Surveyors, is there any sign of void shields on the enemy vessels?" The reply took several seconds. "No, Lord Primarch," Kirasov told him. "It's a different energy pattern, but their shields appear to be more like standard power fields. Teleportation should be possible." "Should?" snapped Gregorius. "We're not sending the Primarch across by teleporter with should as an assurance, Lieutenant." "Of course not, Lieutenant Commander. I will consult with the Teleportaria Mechanicum adepts." "Time to teleport range?" the Primarch asked, as their conveyor rapidly slowed to a stop. 3 minutes and 4 seconds at current speed, Lord Primarch, the navigational officer confirmed. They advanced towards the main teleportation chamber, as from the opposite end of the corridor, Gregorius's squads arrived, clad in Terminator armor, 5 abreast as they came to a stop by the broad gates of the Teleportaria Prime. They looked more like a wall of metal and ceramite than a demi-company of warriors. The doors rumbled open to reveal a broad, low hall bathed in electric light. Energy splayed from exposed relays, wreathing the teleport platform with actinic arcs. Mechanicum tech priests, their faces hidden in the cowls of their red robes, busied themselves at the controls and conduits. "Magos Orthiex assures me that the enemy power fields will not interfere with the teleporter guidance beam, my lord," Kirasov informed them. "Let me send a squad first, just to be sure," said Gregorius. The Primarch did not reply, but strode amongst the Mechanicum acolytes, head turning one way and then another as he looked for something. He came upon their leader, Magos Orthiex, who turned away from a spark-filled glass tube, the articulated tentacles arcing from his back, momentarily dipping in a semblance of a bow. "What is the surety of the teleport beam assessment, Magos?" Dorn demanded. Artificial eyes glittered in the shadow of the Magos's cowl, and when he spoke, his voice was sibilant and phlegmy.
100% surety, Rogal Dorn. I have made the calculations myself, and they have been verified by 3 independent adjudicators.
"Very well. Continue the preparations."
"Full Teleportaria Prime capability is already engaged, Rogal Dorn,"
the Magos informed him. "Understood." Gregorius approached the Magos as Dorn stepped away. "I want complete monitoring of all teleportation signals. The very moment there is any fluctuation or interference, you are to initiate return protocols." Gregorius glanced at his commander to see if he had any contrary instruction. Although it was clear that he had heard the Huscarls' order, the Primarch made no effort to countermand it.
"Affirmative, Lieutenant Commander Gregorius,"
the Magos said, with another dip of his artificial limbs. "Glavius formation," Dorn ordered the Huscarls as he stepped up to the platform, his golden armor glinting with energy discharges from the surrounding machinery. The squads assembled around the Primarch, with Gregorius just to his left, the squads in 5 files behind. "My lord, incoming fire is overloading the first bank of void shield generators," Withdrawal reported. Dorn said nothing, taking his helm from his waist and fixing it with a twist of the hands. His head turned to Orthiax.
"Do you have a target vessel, Magos?"
"Capital class, Rogal Dorn. I have identified and locked on. Would you prefer to attack power production or command?"
"Command deck,"
Dorn replied without hesitation.
"As you order, we obey, Rogal Dorn."
"Provost Lieutenant."
Dorn returned his gaze directly ahead.
"All weapons to target second capital ship at the moment of teleportation."
"Understood, Lord Primarch." Deep in the bowels of the phalanx, there was nothing to feel of the fusillade being unleashed against the starbase. The terrible energies invoked by the void shield generators to shunt that rage aside and protect the hull. Godorias listened to the Vox reports, a steady litany of failing and repaired generators. His concentration was broken by Magos Orthiax, announcing that they were within teleport range.
"Activate the moment you have target fix, Magos," said Dorn. "Huscarls, slay or suppress all enemy in vicinity of our arrival. Full engagement, no relent."
"For the Emperor!" Godorias bellowed, drawing his power sword and raising his combi bolter.
"For the Emperor!"
the Huscarls echoed, as the fronds of teleportation energy flared into frenzied life, slashing across the platform and dancing from gilded armor. Godorias felt the lurch of dislocation in his eyes more than anywhere else. For an instant, nothing more than a notion flying across an infinitely small stretch of warp space towards the target ship. His disassociation ended abruptly as his body reformed at the chosen location, a momentary numbness replaced by a spike in sensation as his corporeal being reassembled. They were in a brightly lit dome-like structure. Above was a crystalline observation pane, through which he could see stars and the flash of azure laser discharge from a dorsal-mounted weapons array. Panels glittering with electronic displays and glowing, gem-like controls cast dapples of amber and red across the white surface of the consoles and the seamless decking. Godorias saw a humanoid, in a loose, long coat of grey over pale blue trousers. She had short hair and a tattoo on her cheek and a sigil he did not recognize. Her expression was of complete shock as she turned from her panel towards him. He lifted his combi bolter and opened fire, turning her chest to a ragged red hole, her innards splashing across the control panel, fragments of bone shattering one of the screens. Around Godorias, the Huscarls turned and broke formation, weapons roaring. Dorn leapt forwards, his huge chainsword in one hand cutting down two foes in a single sweep, its teeth slashing with a screech through the edge of a control console. The attack lasted only a few seconds, and then silence fell. Glancing around, Godorias counted 21 dead. The controls were riddled with bolt detonation craters, the material they were made from more like stone than metal or plastic. "Guard!" he snapped, pointing to a pair of doors at one side of the dome. Vortigier's squad stepped up, their combi bolters at the ready.
"We are aboard,"
Dorn announced across the Vox. "Lord Commander, the enemy are disengaging," Vendral reported hurriedly. "Except for your vessel. They are turning into a collision course with the phalanx." As if in confirmation, high-pitched wails shrieked from hidden address systems. The screeching sound set Godorias's hearts racing, speaking a language that needed no words.
"Target this vessel with all batteries,"
Dorn snapped, moving back towards the Huscarls.
"Magos, immediate evacuation, now!"
Despite his gene-engineered body, Godorias felt a wave of nausea as the teleportaria snatched hold of him and the others again, ripping them back through the warp to its gleaming dais. Fully materialized, his body ached down to the bones, while groans and coughs from others around him revealed that he was not alone in his discomfort. Dorn had already stepped down, the armored doors parting at his approach. Godorias sheathed his sword and lumbered after as best he could. The Primarch turned and headed along the transitway to a viewing gallery aft of the teleportaria. He strode up to the massive armoured windows, craning his neck to look out at the approaching enemy ship. Godorias arrived as the main guns of the phalanx opened fire, crashing high explosive and plasma into the energy fields of the incoming vessel. White stars of resistance flared from its protective sheath, almost blinding despite the auto-senses of the Huscarls' warplate. More and more guns joined the barrage, so that the enemy's ship looked more like a streaking comet than a vessel, encased in a rippling shell of detonations and energy discharge. Finally, the lance turrets drew their power from the grid, 5 scarlet beams that slashed across the interloper as it sped onwards on its crash course. 2 flared uselessly from the shields, but 3 hit the hull, slicing through deck after deck, almost cutting the ship in half. In the depths, something detonated, a reactor most likely, and Gidorias's visor darkened for an instant to protect his eyes against the flare. When sight returned, a few jags of plasma-coiled debris spun haphazardly across the stars, their light quickly guttering away to nothing in the void.
"Other enemy vessels are accelerating hard, moving towards our sensor boundary, Lord Dorn," Vendral reported from the Strategium. "Shall we set engines for pursuit?" "Follow as fast as you can, but I do not think we will catch them," the Primarch replied.
The last few flickers of burning ship reflected through the armor glass on his golden armor.
"I think this enemy wish to remain unknown while they can."